You're driving on the outskirts of your city and you find the perfect piece of land, just in the middle of the path of growth. The seller is asking 1 million and he's been trying to sell it for over 1 year. You go to your home, make some research, and then you make an offer. Then you go to your bank, and here is where the bad news starts. They reject your loan. Most investors will stop here, but not you. In this video, I'm gonna teach you 3 ways you can use seller financing to have this deal in place. Follow me to find out. Okay, now I will show you the 3 ways to set up a deal with seller financing. The first way to set a deal is with a lease with purchase option. This is not right away a purchasing transaction, but it's most a lease. And then after the lease, you have the option to purchase the property. Okay, so that means we have an equitable interest here. We are not purchasing the property right away, but we have a right to purchase it, and we have a lease in place. So this is very important. If you have, for example, you want to lease an apartment complex, then you need the right to sublease, because remember, you are paying a rent for all the property, the whole apartment complex, and then you have the right to sublease each apartment for, of course, you will sublease for more than you are paying to the owner. So you need here, if you want to buy the property, you need an option to buy. Okay, usually if you have the option to buy that property, you will pay an option fee. For example, you will have a lease for 5 years for this apartment complex, and then after those 5 years, you can execute the option to purchase the property for, let's say, 1 million or 10 million. Okay, so then you have to pay something for the option fee. Okay, so you have to have some money from the beginning, because many people think you have a lease, you don't have to make a down payment here. But that may be true, but you have to have some savings to pay the option fee if you want to buy the property at the end of the lease. Here you have no depreciation write-off, because since the title is not in your name, you cannot depreciate that asset. Okay, that's the con of this strategy. Okay, but the appreciation, let's say you set the price for 1 million now, and then after 5 years the asset it's valued 2 million, let's say. So that appreciation is yours because you set the price from the beginning. Okay, but the depreciation with the IRS, you cannot write off the depreciation. Here's a tip. You can make one contract here, the lease agreement, and then on the clauses of that contract, you make a purchase option. Okay, that's one way to do it, this. But the other way is you make 2 contracts. You make one lease agreement, and then you make another purchase agreement or option agreement. Okay, that way, if you fail to, let's say, you don't pay 1 rent or 2 rents, and then the landlord wants to void the lease agreement, you still have the purchase agreement. Okay, that helps you. That's a tip. The last thing is what is best for this kind of strategy. This is best for non-bankable assets. For example, if the bank will lend you for that property, maybe it's more easy for you to go to the bank and ask for the money. Okay, but if the bank don't want to lend you for the money, then this is an option to purchase that property. And also, maybe the seller doesn't want to pay taxes for selling the property in this year, but maybe he wants to pay in 5 years. So that way you can set the lease for 5 years, and at the 5th year he will sell the property and they pay the taxes, because maybe right now he doesn't have many losses to write off the profits of that sale, but in 5 years maybe he has some losses and he can write off that profit with the losses he has for other business, let's say. Okay, so the second way to seller financing would be as a vendor's line. Okay, so in this strategy the seller becomes the bank, so he will sell you the property. Of course he will not give you cash, but you will sign a promissory note, so that way he will works as a bank. Okay, so in this way you will have the deed on your name and you will have a lien, a vendor's lien. Okay, so you will take the depreciation of on this deal because the deal is in your name. Okay, and also you will take the appreciation as a normal deal. You will set from the beginning the price and the interest rate of this. Usually here you can have first or second line. This helps because, for example, there's sometimes you can mix this vendor's line with a loan from the bank. So for example, the bank will lend you some money and they always, or most of the times, they would like to be on the first position for the line. Okay, but then you will need maybe some money for the down payment. Maybe you only have 10,000 and you need 100k, so you can ask the seller to get a second line on the property for that 90,000k. Okay, so this one, the vendor's line, it's best for overpriced assets. This works, for example, when you have a property that it's over market priced and the seller has been trying to sell it for maybe over 1 or 2 years because it's overpriced, then you want to offer seller financing, and maybe you negotiate an interest rate lower than the market, or maybe you negotiate no interest rate. You only negotiate the overpricing as if you are paying the interest rate. Okay, and that way, because many times the sellers just have a number in mind and they will not go down. You can win this way because you are offering the price he wants, but you are not paying interest. You are paying the interest in the overprice. Okay, so that may work in an overpriced property. The third way, it's a purchase option or option contract. This is a normal contract, like a purchase and sale agreement. If you have purchased a property, before you go to the title company, set the closing and get the deed, the first thing you sign, it's a purchase and sale agreement. This is the same thing. Okay, but you can have a second option. An option contract, it's kind of the same way a purchase and sale agreement, but you don't have to necessarily purchase. You have the right to purchase, or if you don't decide to execute the option, you don't purchase. Okay, I always think it's better the purchase and sale agreement with a non-refundable down payment. It's the same thing, but you have to be clear that if you fail to perform that contract, there is no consequences for you. Okay, you have to write it on the contract. Other way, you would prefer an option contract. So in this one, you have an equitable interest, because if the seller accepts the contract, they are obligated to perform the contract. Okay, and this has no interest, because usually in a normal transaction you have, for example, 1 month to perform and do the closing. For example, in a large piece of land transaction, you can have as long as 1 year or maybe 2 years to perform the closing. okay? Because this is usual in the industry, because you have to run some due diligence, some studies, soil studies, geotechnical, many things to do, and you need more time in commercial transactions. So you can set maybe 1 or 2 years to perform the closing, and then at the beginning you make the down payment or the option fee. So all over the 1 or 2 years you have the option to close on that property, okay? So that's why this is better for land, because in land, since it's not easy to sell a big piece of land, many sellers are willing to seller finance with this purchase or option contract, because they don't have many options. The bank will not lend many buyers to purchase this kind of properties. So the only way for a bank to lend you for big pieces of land is you have all the permits and all the plans in place. So that takes time. So that's why this kind of strategy works, because you need at least 1 year to get the permits and the plans, and you can tell the seller that you need all that time. You said 1 or 2 years for this purchase or option contract. So in the next whiteboard, I'm gonna show you an example of this. Okay, so let's try to understand this with an example. In this example, we are going to purchase a plot of land for 2 million. Okay, we want to build something, to develop something, let's say an apartment complex, and we need 2 years to the construction, because we are going to get the plans and we are going to get the permits, and we are going to do all the due diligence, like all the geotech studies and everything. Okay, so let's evaluate these 3 options. The first one we have, it's a lease agreement with an option to purchase. Okay, so here we have to pay at the beginning a 2% option fee. So that will be $40K. And the second cost we have is the annual rent. For land, we mostly have around, for at least here in Texas, around a 4% cap rate. We will be paying around $80K a year. Okay, the holding cost, it's $40K plus 2 times $80K, that is the annual rent, and we have $200K for the holding cost until we have time financing for the construction. Okay, the second option will be the vendor's lien. We close the transaction right now and we have a vendor's lien on the property. Okay, for here the annual interest will be around 6%. Okay, so that will be around $120K. The down payment for this, we need $200K up front. We will not pay it along the 2 years, but up front, because it's a down payment. Okay, so how much will be the holding cost? Will be, I'm only considering the interest here, because we are paying 2 years of interest, 120. We are paying $240K. But we also have to consider the opportunity cost of the down payment, because we can invest this $200K and maybe get 6%, or maybe let's say 4% a year, and that will be an opportunity cost that we can sum up to this number. The third and last option will be the purchase or option contract for this piece of land. Okay, so in this one we need upfront also an earnest money deposit of, well, let me explain. We can pay upfront the 10% earnest money deposit. Most of you will say that's a lot of money, 10%. What we can do, because it's non-refundable, it's like an option. We can do it the same way like an option, because it's non-refundable. What we can negotiate here is the first year, maybe we can pay the half of it, maybe $100K, 5%. Okay, and then once we have maybe the first due diligence or maybe the plans or some permits, then on the second year we pay the other 100K, the other 5%. So that way we don't risk all that money at once. Okay, so if we get the plans and then we don't get the permits on the second year, we don't pay all the money, we only paid half of it, 100K. Okay, so we lost half of it, so because this is non-refundable. So the holding cost for this for the 2 years will be 200K, same number as the lease option. So in this example we should evaluate the risk of both, because if we can negotiate to put upfront maybe 2%, and then at the end of the first year put 80K, so let's say 2% at the beginning of the signing of the contract, and then 80K at the end of the first year, so that will be 100K for the first year, and then on the second year the other 100K. That will be less risky than the lease, because on the lease we have to put upfront 40K and then start paying the rent. Okay, so in that case I will choose this one. Okay, but we can negotiate many ways to do. And remember, you have to do this contract, so if you don't perform the contract, you don't guarantee the contract by yourself, so the seller cannot go after you to pay the whole amount of the money or to perform the contract. Okay, you have to write this with the help of an attorney. Okay, so those are the 3 ways to seller financing. In this video I teach you how to use seller financing to finance a deal to purchase a piece of land. What do you think? Do you choose the same strategy I use? Or maybe you use a lease with option, or maybe vendor line? Write it on the comments. I would like to answer all your questions or discuss any other options. Thank you for watching this video. If you like it, give me a thumbs up. It really helps me a lot. And if you want to keep watching more videos like this, hit the subscribe button. That way you will be notified every time I upload a new video. If you want to invest in commercial real estate, but maybe you don't have the money or maybe the time to do it, I have an investor club where my investors can invest from 25,000K. And do you know what's the best of all? I manage everything. It's totally stress-free. You can join my investor club by clicking in the link below. Thank you for reaching this point on the video. If you want to watch more videos like this, I will leave you with 2 more videos.